Hello, whoa. This is going to be a quick crash tutorial on how I mix in UTAU vocals. So like, here's what they sound like raw, using iron.
Guess I'll end this life alone. I am not romantic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me.
So they're pretty clear, but they don't really have any dimension. There's not a roundness to them, and we can do a lot to improve it. So the first thing I'm going to do is drag in a duplicate into Audacity, make sure they're lined up. I'm going to hit this button right here, and I'm going to make them into a stereo track. That is going to allow us to have a better breadth of editing. I'm then going to take a little section from the beginning of silence and paste that at the end, and this will come into play later, and then I'm going to hit Control J to join the tracks together so there's no seam. I'm then going to select everything, and because I have and record on a Blue Yeti, I have a mic setting which is also included in 26 Spank, an image that is this exact, I just pointed at my screen so you can see what I'm talking about, an image that is this file, so this is kind of the waveform that will give me better. So if you, hang on, let me show you what I'm talking about. So right here, you can kind of see like there's not like there are some peaks, but there's not an entirely consistent level. So this is going to bring that and make it more consistent. You can see those peaks got a little bit bigger, which is good. And then I'm going to immediately hit it with a compressor. This is the default compressor that comes in Audacity. The settings work really well for 26. So before I apply that, here's what it sounds like after just filter curve.
Guess I'll end this life alone. I am not romantic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me.
So it's pretty, it's a little bit more rounded, but it's not quite perfect. So now I'm going to select this, hit the compressor, hit apply, and you can see it kind of adjust. I just pointed out my screen again. It adjusted this little section right here. So let's listen again.
Guess I'll end this life alone. I am not romantic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me.
So most people, I feel, would take this exact audio setup, go into effects, slap on a reverb, and call it good. And there's nothing wrong with that, but for iron, I keep calling it, like swapping between 26 and iron. With iron, I've included a large list and very specific imagery that is for mixing. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Add Effect, VST, Muse Effects. When you install Audacity, you get the option to add Muse Effects, which is MuseScore and Audacity, because MuseScore is a company that does music notation software, bought Audacity, and now they are the same kind of thing. But anyway, I'm going to go into here, Muse Effects, or VST3, Muse Effects, Compress. I'm going to open this up. This is Iron's default, so let's listen to that now.
Guess I'll end this life alone.
Same thing.
Guess I'll end this life alone.
It's a very subtle difference, but if you can hear it, like I can hear it, you understand what I'm doing. So we're here, we can compressor. Next thing I do is we scroll down to the de-esser. We hit this button, we go to male voice, and in the image it's at an 11, we're going to turn that down to about halfway.
Guess I'll end this life alone. I am not romantic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me. All the douchebags in my phone.
Basically, what that does is make the S's less harsh, and I, as the voice provider for Iron, have a lot of harsh S's in my voice, so I tone those out. Next thing I'm going to do is scroll all the way down to noise gate. I'm putting that amp noise, and I'm cranking it all the way up.
Guess I'll end this life alone. I am not romantic, these are just the thoughts that pass right.
You can hear it kind of takes off some of those high-frequency tinny noises. The next thing I'm going to go in and add is my equalization. So this is where you bring out the tones of the voice. This is what we talk about, when we talk about leveling a microphone in theater land or putting EQ on a voice. This is what we're talking about. So Iron has a baritone tenor range, so I filter it out like this. My focus is here on low mids and high for the clarity. The highs are your consonants and your high-pitched tones, duh. Your mids and low mids are where most people's voices exist, but if you're a low voice, like a low baritone or a bass vocal, you'll have more here. But we don't want to boost any of that because that will reduce our clarity on the consonants here. So this is formulated for iron.
Guess I'll end this life alone.
But if I turn it off,
Guess I'll end this life alone.
it's, again, a super subtle change, but it makes a huge difference when you're mixing. So here we go into this. The next thing I'm going to add is my... Oh, I lost it. What am I looking for? Oh, I'm going to add my chorus. So this one's kind of an optional one, but this gives me kind of my...
Guess I'll end this life alone.
You can see it does a vocal effect, and because... I can't talk over it. Because I like iron to sound robotic-y, I add two phasers to it. Or not phasers, two chorus effects on it. So the lead vocal phaser...
Guess I'll end this life alone.
At like a 4. Like, it's not super loud, but it's very subtle. And then I do another one, and I put this one on the vocal thickener, and at the same level, about a 4.
Guess I'll end this life alone.
And this is for lead vocals. For backing vocals, I do something a little bit different with those, but yeah. Then I go to the master, and I hit this button. I go to UTAU, clean maximizer on step 4.
Guess I'll end this life alone.
That one is the one that does a lot of heavy lifting for the actual, like, tangible, you can hear it immediately kind of sounds. So that's that one. I then will go into Audacity's built-in effects, do reverb, crank this up to 100, crank this down to 16, leave the rest where it is.
Guess I'll end this life alone.
And that's your standard studio sound. But I also like to add one more. This is called delay, and essentially this is, well, I'll play what it does out of the box, but
Guess I'll end this.
That's not very clear for UTAU, so what I do is I go into my spacey vocals. This is an... the way that it works in this context is it has an 8th note delay that's linked to an 8th note length. So
Guess I'll end this life alone.
It'll be half a beat behind, but I like to take this and make this shorter. So I take it to an 8th to a linked to a 16th, so it's a little bit shorter.
Guess I'll end this life alone.
And then I crank it down.
Guess I'll end this life alone. I am not romantic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me.
If you listen to Ariana Grande or any of like the big pop girlies, this is kind of a lot of the heavy lifting of the mixing that they do in the background. I encourage you, go listen to an Ariana Grande acapella. It sounds exactly like that. So this is how many effects I use on my bass vocals for mains. I then will select this, Control D to duplicate. I will delete this track, and then I'm going to go into my harmony. This is the first harmony track. Drag it in twice to make it stereo, and then I kind of rinse and repeat. Make it a stereo track, copy this, paste it here, Control J to join, drag this up into here, and now it suddenly has the same vocal effects on, but we need to do the two that are not real-time effects. Filter curve. It will preset to the last thing you use, so I just filter curve enter. Same thing with the compressor. Compressor enter. And we're going to solo this track so you can hear what it is.
I'm not romantic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me.
But because this is a backing track, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into these chorus effects, and I'm going to crank this all the way up on both of them. Because I want it to sound like there's more than one person singing the backing vocals, so now...
I'm not romantic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me.
So they're really loud, which is fine, but in context with the other one.
I'm not romantic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me.
The next thing I do is I usually drop these vocals 5 to 10 decibels. Let's try 10 and see how it sounds.
I am not romantic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me.
Great, so now I'm going to, once again, duplicate this track, delete it. I'm going to drag in my next harmony track, and rinse and repeat. It's all kind of it's a workflow, it's a conveyor belt, it's a work line that's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. especially mixing Iron's vocals, because that's pretty much all I do right now. It's very easy. Filter curve, enter. Compressor, enter. So now we're gonna, and it will also keep that negative 10 decibels. So now we're here.
Play him like a slot machine. If they're winning, I'm just losing.
Beautiful, love it. I love the way the song does its harmonies. The only downside to duplicating the tracks is they will all be called main, but if you load them in order, it's pretty easy to distinguish which one's which. So next is harmony 3, which doesn't jump until there. Make it a stereo track. Whoop, copy, paste, Control J, slide up, exit, double click, filter curve, enter, compressor, enter. And if you're wondering why I do it in that order, it's because the order of this stuff and these effects matters. So if I swap some stuff around, it'll change how it processes. So for example, if I go back to my main, right, this is my main track, and I click the delay and I put it all the way above the chorus, right? So now what it's going to do is apply the delay before it applies the chorus effects in the master, so it'll sound completely different.
Guess I'll end this life alone. I am not dramatic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me.
Versus if I put it back where it was, I believe it was below. Yep, it was below.
Guess I'll end this life alone. I am not dramatic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me.
It's very subtle, but it is very different if you have a strong ear like I do. So just make sure that you are cognizant about the order that you're putting these things in, because you don't want to put your noise gate after equalization, because if you do that, then you're going to filter out some of the tones that your EQ will filter out the tones that you need to filter out with the noise gate before the noise gate can, it's like a whole, like it's a set based sequence, So we're here. Let's listen to those 3 chords. Beautiful. So then we forgot to tap Control D, duplicate, and then I delete this track, like shrink that one down, grabbing the last harmony track, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Copy this, paste it here, Control J to join, move it up. Okay. Double click, filter curve, enter, compressor, enter.
Jesus, what's a guy to do? This book doesn't even know the difference between there and they are.
So let me skip to the loudest part, which is where all 4 vocal tracks are going to be playing.
Since the good ones are deceased or taken, I'll just keep on moaning and bitching. Moaning and bitching.
So what I will do in certain scenarios, depending on the song, sometimes I will mute this main track and export it like it is, and then do the reverse. So mute all 4 other tracks and export this one, so I have both vocal mixes and I can level them independently when I'm mixing it with the main audio. So I'm going to do that on this one. Okay, that's complete. Now I'm going to open a new window. I'm going to close this old one because I don't want it taking up my RAM. I'm then going to take these 2 and drag them in. Bing, bop, boop, boop, beep, bop, bam. That's it. I'm going to move this one to the top because this is my main. You can tell because it doesn't have, like, the other stuff. But
I am not romantic, these are just
the other thing about doing it this way is this is now leveled at 0, even though it was rendered at -10. So I can adjust it more independently that way as well. I'm going to then go into this, and I'm going to grab my karaoke track. Yep, nope, not quite. I think it's right there. So
guess.
So yeah, this is the tricky part of timing.
Guess I'll end this life alone. I am not strong.
I believe that's right on it, right? So this is that bump, and then this needs to be aligned with that. So all I'm going to do is go whoop.
I am not romantic. These are just the thoughts that pass right through me. All the douchebags in my phone.
Okay, perfect. So now I can grab this, and Audacity's magic because it'll boop, make a yellow line right there when they are aligned. It'll also kind of stick it for a second, but now I can independently mix them.
I am not romantic. These are just the thoughts that pass right through me. All the douchebags in my phone. Playing like a slot machine. If they're winning, I'm just losing.
Sounds pretty good. I'm going to add a couple of effects to all 3 tracks to blend them together better, because one thing I really hate about some UTAU covers is you can tell that the vocal quality of like rendering it out of UTAU and mixing it, and then the quality of the karaoke track don't quite match, but we can blend them together a little bit by adding another master on top.
Guess I'll end this life alone.
Just a little bit. Yep. A little bit goes a long way. And then I'm going to add what is called a limiter. This is for my ears because I'm very sensitive, but I'm going to do -5, -5, look ahead, and release. I'm going to turn that down to 1 as well. So this basically, how can I explain this? So the look ahead is how far it's going to look in the future for the track to analyze. It's basically analyzing all the peaks and valleys of the track, and it's going to normalize them to be -5 decibels loud.
Guess I'll end this life.
That's what I'm talking about. So these 2 lines right here is at -5 decibels, and this is the vocal track, and then this is not the vocal track. This is the karaoke track, but that's not correct. This is not the vocal track. This is the drop. So these are the peaks, right? And it doesn't need to bring them up or down, but you can see when it goes above 5 decibels, it's going to drop this down. So that's kind of flattening out this curve. This is the actual compression. There's a target. There's the output and the input. That would be what it is. So I just kind of monitor this and make sure it's not
Guess I'll end this life alone.
So egregious. You can see up here that it's exactly at 5.
These are just the thoughts that pass right through me. All the douchebags in my phone. Playing like a slot machine. If they're winning, I'm just losing.
So you have to be careful, because if it gets too loud and it's compressing too much, like right here, it can sound like it is peaking, even though it is not peaking. It's because it's compressing so much. So we have to kind of, like, I often will go into the settings, and I have this preset here that is pretty decent.
I'm not romantic, these are just the thoughts that pass right through me. All the douchebags in my phone. Playing like a slot machine. If they're winning, I'm...
Yeah, so it just doesn't, it makes it to where it's not so ear-blastingly loud. But yeah, this is just a remix of a cover I've already done. I'm just retracing the steps I did so I can show you this video. But yeah, this is kind of, I guess, my tips on how to mix more effectively in UTAU with Audacity over a different software that is either not free or is trickier to use. Audacity, I like it because it's very user-friendly, and I've used it for years and years and years and years. So yeah, that's my 20-minute video. I guess I'll edit it down a little bit, but there's my kind of tutorial on how to do that. So if you have any questions, comment below.